Hello and welcome to Reading Reddit. Today we will be going over a post by the user Adept Warrior. What's a no shit moment where you realized you've been doing something the wrong way for years? When I was 5, a Pizza Hut employee told me that the powder on the breadsticks was called fairy dust. Ordered extra fairy dust on my breadsticks until I was around 14 when an employee said, "Do you mean garlic salt?" It still devastates me to realize how obtuse I was. I worked at Pizza Hut from 16 to 21. We called it fairy dust. It wasn't very long, but when I was learning to drive, my dad was explaining the rule of thumb regarding a safe distance to be behind the car in front of you. I thought it meant to hold your thumb up, and if your thumb didn't cover the entire car you were too close to it. When he caught me doing that, he asked me what I was doing. When I explained, he burst out laughing, then considered it, and concluded it wasn't a bad idea but perhaps a bit distracting. I had a used car and didn't realize until a couple years later that it had remote start. Person buying my now more used car: "This has remote start?" Me. "No." Person pushes button, starts car. Me. Since the dawn of time, I would pick up the silverware and utensils out of their tray in the dishwasher and put them away in their drawers, then go back and pick up more out of the dishwasher. Then one day I saw my wife lift the tray out of the dishwasher and I legit stood there with my mouth open. My mom has been pronouncing Massachusetts for years and no one corrected her because they thought she just had strong feelings about Massachusetts. My mother cannot pronounce that or Mitsubishi. She tries but same outcome, and Mitsubishi comes out Mitsubishi. I always thought eggplant tasted itchy, like itchy was a flavor, like sour or salty. Fed some to my baby and his face turned red wherever the eggplant touched, and I realized we're both just allergic to eggplant. And itchy isn't a flavor. I used to fill the kettle by the spout. My parents have always done it this way. I thought the center part was mainly for decoration, but not functional. I don't know why I never questioned this. One day I bought a new tea kettle and my husband was like, "WTF, what is inside this?" and with great ease opened the center to pull out a manual with instructions and whatnot. I was drinking dirty paper water for like 2 weeks. One day I used the key fob to remotely start my dad's car. It was a no shit moment for him. 2 years and he didn't realize he had this handy little function. When I was a kid, I was told that the paper that came on cupcakes muffins was edible. I would spend a decade eating them like this, paper and all, until a friend pointed it out. I mean, you ate them for a decade. I think you proved they are edible. My family always had a cup next to the bathroom sink in case you needed to rinse your mouth after brushing your teeth or maybe get a quick drink of water in the middle of the night. My grandma had the same cup at her house. I used it for years whenever I was thirsty. One day she saw me doing this and said, "Don't use that cup. That's where grandma puts her teeth." I was 30 when I found out that an event calendar, as I called it, is not a thing and it's an advent calendar. I was 32 when I found out Advent is not short for adventure. When I was a kid and was acting up, my dad would always threaten to leave me at this mean old lady's house. Her name was Helen Handbasket. Fast forward about 28 years later and it clicks out of nowhere while I was on a customer call at work. Customer: "This whole network is going to hell in a handbasket." Me. I'm an idiot. I went to a county fair when I was a kid and the brown cows were in a barn with crappy yellow sodium lights. Those cows were as green as Irish grass to my eye. My parents thought I was nuts going on about the green cows. Wasn't until I got my color vision tested when I went into the service I found out why. When I was in high school I was talking to a colorblind friend asking the usual dumb questions, like what color is a green light when you're driving, and he said he knows which light is which even though they all look gray. So I said, "Oh, so Yoda is gray to you?" Then his horrified expression as he yelled, "Yoda is green" was priceless. I used to pull my pants down all the way at the urinal. I taught myself how to play clarinet. 6 months later someone told me that I'd been playing with the mouthpiece upside down. Maybe you just had your mouth upside down. When I realized, at 18, that the phrase is up and Adam not up and Adam, I was always wondering who the hell Adam was, thought it was a stupid phrase. After moving to a new city, I went to the laundromat and the Korean lady working was yelling at me about something I couldn't understand. After some pantomime it became clear that she was upset I was putting in the wrong detergent, but it was the same kind I have been using for 8 years, since moving away to college and behind. Turns out I've been washing my clothes with only fabric softener for nearly a decade. They always smelled good, so I never really thought about it. Not my proudest moment. Travel frequently for work and only just noticed that most laptop bags have a strap to place over a rolling suitcase handle. I was dating an Asian woman some years ago, and when we got Chinese takeout, she completely unfolded the box and laid it flat like a plate. She said that was by design, and for the life of her could never understand why her friends always scooped it out onto another plate when the box was the plate. I now do this all the time and it weirds people out. For 20 plus years I've been saying play it by ear instead of play it by ear. After a lengthy argument and a quick Google search, I was left with my tail between my legs. Pronouncing hybrid as high bird. My husband repeated it to me in a snuffleupagus voice and I swear I had a Ratatouille food critic flashback to every time in my life I said it wrong. I was 33. Found out I was lighting incense wrong. Boyfriend and I got a bunch to add to our collection of nice smells and we would light them and they would just start a little inferno. Convinced we were buying cheap, garbage incense, we stopped using them. I proceed to buy a different brand in a hope those would work. I test light and same thing, it just goes up in an inferno. Roommate informs us you are supposed to blow them out once they catch. Oops. I owned a light blue colored microwave for about 3 years that a family member gave me for a housewarming gift. Thought it was cool, never saw a blue microwave before. One night, a buddy asked why I never took the blue plastic wrap off my microwave, then proceeded to peel it off for me. Damn, that bitch is silver. Still miss my blue microwave sometimes though. It wasn't very long, but when I was learning to drive my dad was explaining the rule of thumb regarding a safe distance to be behind the car in front of you. I thought it meant to hold your thumb up and if your thumb didn't cover the entire car you were too close to it. When he caught me doing that he asked me what I was doing. When I explained he burst out laughing, then considered it, and concluded it wasn't a bad idea but perhaps a bit distracting. Until last week, when my father-in-law would made a phone call on his very basic non-touchscreen flip phone, he would open the menu, scroll to the phone icon, open it, hit the soft key for contacts, scroll to the person he wanted to call, press OK, then press the soft key to call. When he mentioned how he preferred his landline because he could just dial the number, I said humor me. Just dial the number and hit the talk button. I've never seen a man so simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. Couple years ago I was trying to open some toothpaste and had to break the seal of the tube. I used to look for something like a nail to break it. Then one day I looked at the pointy end of the cap and thought, what if I could use this to break it, and oh shit, it did fit and broke it effortless. And so did every other tube product I had in the house and their respective cap. My mind was blown. No one really ever told me you don't need to buy shoes with the 2 fingers space in front of the toes after your feet stop growing. I had been buying an entire size too big until about age 23. One day in college I decided to try a pair of Merrell barefoot type shoes and after reading the sizing guide, bam. Mind blown. It's terribly obvious mistake I, 29F, like to blame on being an only child. But really I'm just a moron. I grew up without a mom. She passed when I was 6. I was afraid to ask my dad how to put a tampon in. One day I made a comment, about age 18, to some friends that tampons hang out too far out your bajingo and made me feel like I waddled when I walk. My friend asked me how I put them in. I thought it would get stuck up there and wasn't inserting it far enough. Did it wrong for about 5 years. My friends still make fun of me for it. I can't help but use the dead mom card, but looking back it's pretty common sense how to shove it up there. My mom used to refer to me as a bull in a china shop. Always heard it as bowl in a china shop, thinking it was a compliment. At about 22 I hear someone else use the phrase and realized she meant bull, not bowl. AWW mom talking about how dainty and priceless I am again. I owned a car with swivel headlights and it was very nice to have that. Discovered 3 years in that I had never turned on the swivel feature. Well, this was a few years ago. I was the director of it for a very large company. I was given a new cell phone and told to set up my voicemail. I don't know that when I recorded my name it would be played to whomever I leave a voicemail for. Well, the name I recorded was Dada84 Corporate It God. I worked there for 4 years until someone in the hallway referred to me as the Corporate It God. I was so embarrassed. Well, this was a few years ago. I was the director of it for a very large company. I was given a new cell phone and told to set up my voicemail. I don't know that when I recorded my name it would be played to whomever I leave a voicemail for. Well, the name I recorded was Dada84 Corporate IT God. I worked there for 4 years until someone in the hallway referred to me as the Corporate IT God. I was so embarrassed. Realize the multicolored tape measures glued to the door frames of gas stations etc. are for identifying robbers, not for measuring yourself as you walk out. I mean, they can be, but that's not why they are there. Unless you're the robber. Grandfather thought his name was Harvey his whole life. Got his birth certificate at 65 and it's Harmon. When I first got a debit card and would go out to eat at restaurants with my friends, I would leave a cash tip on the table. When I got the receipt to put how much I was paying, I would write down how much money I left on the table. For at least 6 months I gave double tips to every waitress I had. I am lactose intolerant. I genuinely did not know this for the first 25 plus years of my life. I always had to go to the bathroom after eating something with cheese in it. One day it just clicked. I bought some Lactaid, took it before the next time I ate cheese, and I didn't have to go to the bathroom. It was mind-blowing. I have no idea how I didn't make the connection for years. So I guess you could say instead of having a oh shit moment I had an oh shit moment. I didn't realize I had to brush the back of my teeth as well as the front. I was a dumb kid. I blamed toothpaste adverts until I was 15. Had 9 filings and a root canal. Same. Embarrassingly enough, I thought you brushed your teeth to keep them white. I didn't know anything about keeping them healthy, so I thought, I don't mind if my back teeth are yellow. Nobody's going to see them anyway. I'm 32 years old and I just learned how to floss properly. I went to see my in-law because she promised me a free teeth cleaning. She was freaked out because I apparently floss way too hard. I had scars in my gums from repeatedly cutting them with floss in the same place. And she taught me that floss is supposed to hug both sides of the tooth and it's to help remove plaque and food particles. I just assumed if it hurts it means there's something wrong or stuck, so floss harder. I was always confused about bleeding gums because my gums always bled when I flossed. Living in a foreign country where I was actively learning the language. Social cues go a long way when learning a language on the spot. That being said, someone once said a phrase to me while serving a hot dish, which I assumed as meaning excuse me. After going through crowds and lines, replicating the same phrase in an attempt to be respectful of those around me, I abruptly found out that the phrase actually meant enjoy. Hindsight completely makes sense. The odd lucks I would get by saying enjoy while squeezing past people all of a sudden made sense. One time me and my little cousin were brushing our teeth at the same time at my grandma's. She had to have been maybe 7-ish, and grabbed the pink cup and took a sip before I could stop her, and the dentures came at her and her eyes got so big, she just put the cup back and left the bathroom. My wife and I have this ceiling fan light in our bedroom in the house we moved into 2 years ago. It has a remote control for the fan and lights. About a year and a half ago the lights suddenly stopped working. The fan works well and we didn't have a ton of money, so we've just lived with lamps in the room, always being frustrated with how damn dark it is. I was scrolling some other thread on AskReddit a few weeks ago and the top post was a guy talking about how his lights stopped working years ago, and then he found out that it was just dimmed, which you do by holding down the button on the remote. It sounded so much like our fan I went and tried it. Dimmed. I didn't find out that I was supposed to punch out for lunch until my third job. And even then it was because a coworker mentioned it in passing that they were clocking out for lunch. Not me, but this happened at a dinner party I was at a few years ago. Everyone at the table was in their mid to late 20s. For whatever reason, we were talking about a very similar topic, embarrassing stuff that you didn't realize until you were an unreasonably old age. One guy brought up how he grew up with 4 sisters, and since he was a little kid they always told him that he had to leave the toilet seat down. Being a little kid, he assumed girls cared so much about the toilet seat being down because toilet seats were for girls. So he stopped using toilet seats, and would sit on the rim of the toilet every time he had to take a dump. He didn't realize until he was about 10 that toilet seats were for everyone to use. We all had a good laugh about this. Except for one guy, who was dead quiet and whose face had gone red as a beet. No one had ever brought this up to him before and he, too, had thought toilet seats were for girls. At 27. Winding a watch that was battery powered. For like, a year. Ah, frick. Thanks for making me think of that. Not cause I've been doing something wrong my entire life but saw it wrong. I'm colorblind and my entire life I thought peanut butter was green until I turned 19. And when I found out it was brown my mind was blown. It took so long because no one really talks about the color of things like that. Thank you very much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment and subscribe. We post every day at 6 PM so turn on your notifications. Have a good day friends.